Welcome back to that rugby podcast hosted by the Rugby Booth. It's your boy Luke and Hughesy. We're back again. Look, a successful weekend for the Hurricanes. I said it was a must-win game. We went to Canberra and broke a bit of a voodoo. 8 years since we'd won there. So, massive win for us. However, what I want to say now, and I'm going to get into it, I got lucky because your Waratahs didn't play. So, I'm going to spend these first 5 minutes just talking up how great the Hurricanes are. And
absolutely,
what I want to say is we haven't lost to an Australian team. Haven't lost. Unbeaten to Australian teams. So that's a good point to start with. We only have really lost, and look, the Island Pacific game, I'm just going to call a blip, like Adi Savia revenge. We can call it what it is. It's, again, more hoodoos going on there. We've only lost to the Blues and the Crusaders. That's all we lose to. So my thinking is Blues aren't going to make the finals, so don't have to worry about them. We're not going to play them again. So we go into this week. We beat the Chiefs. We do it. They're down DMAC. They're down Anton Leonard-Brown. All I'm saying. We beat the Chiefs. Look, we finish in 6th spot or 5th spot, and we don't have to play the Crusaders, and someone knocks out the Crusaders. We're winning the comp. It's easy. It's done. It's settled. All we need to do is not play the Crusaders, and we'll win the comp. And that's the whole story because Stone Cold said so. I mean, this is that was the performance we needed. We looked like the better team. The game was the scoreline flattered the Brumbies, and it was a bit of a shock. I will say there's lots of names I could mention, but Billy Proctor and Riley Higgins in the centre combo took us to a whole nother level, and rightfully so. He's been back for 2 weeks now, Billy Proctor, and people are already starting to go, Rieko Ioane or Billy Proctor. That's how good he was this week, especially his attack, his D. Fantastic. For the Brumbies, and I will say this, to be that close and play that shit, like they just didn't look good, and to only lose by 6 points is, again, so Brumbies-like. I just sit there and think about it.
Didn't have the ball either. Like the stats at halftime was 76 possession to the Hurricanes. It's crazy. And the fact, it was within 6 points. One thing I think was shown in this game that the Brumbies maybe didn't want shown, and that was they were vulnerable on the edges. Now, not everyone has a big old winger like the Hurricanes have got, but what it showed there is their wingers are average in defense. Like they're not bad, but they're just average. They're not special. Get Max Jorgensen on one of those wings as a defender, I think they would have had a better time of it because he's shown his ability to take out bigger guys. Corey Toole, though, and this is one of the concerns I think Australia has and why he hasn't made it to that Wallabies level, is that if you put him up against a bigger winger, he is going to have a far harder time taking them down. Now, against a team maybe like the Springboks with some of their smaller, faster wingers, that might be where Corey Toole can factor into the picture. But I think when you're going up against your All Blacks or you're going up against the British and Irish Lions, I think that he will have to take a back seat there to some of the other wingers. And as well as that, there's a very crowded room ahead of him there. Look, Brumbies, I think they would be disappointed to not defend home ground against the New Zealand team and to be the first Australian team to let a New Zealand team win in Australia this year. The Hurricanes are the only team that have not lost every single game in Australia. They've drawn a game and now won a game in Australia. So that's going to be feeling good for the Hurricanes, especially because you are likely going to be entering into the finals of the Super Rugby competition in a lower seed, probably facing off against an Australian team in the finals. It could be the Brumbies, So it's got to feel good to show that you can play over there in Australia where the other New Zealand teams have fallen short. Look, you could definitely see as well, and I'm saying this as a non-Hurricanes fan, you could definitely see the impact Billy Proctor had on this team. Just looked far better. He was dangerous running the ball every single time, forcing missed tackles, and it was it's a different team with him out there. I think as well, your halves had a very good game compared to some of the other performances this year as well.
Yeah, again, Ruben Love's slowly moving into that 10 jersey quite nicely. Cam Roigard's the best 9 in the world, and I'll continue to say it. And as many Hurricanes fans sit there and question why are we bringing him off, I also question that. We know Cam Roigard runs like a 4.5, 420-minute Bronco. He's fit enough to fucking play a whole game. I don't mind it now if we make finals and then we play him for 80 in finals and we're building him up for finals. I understand substitutions, energy, players, but in my opinion, Cam Roigard's the best 9 in the world. And people are going to sit there and call that blasphemy because there's a guy called Antoine Dupont and many others. But in my opinion, Cam Roigard, best 9 in the world. I think, the combination of Ruben Love is growing. I think I agree with you again. Ryan Lonergan and Noel Olosio, two very quality players, but again, I think had an off game when 76 possession. There does have to be some decision making involved around how we're going to keep ball, how we're going to hold on to ball. But again, Brumbies side at the end of the 80 minutes within touching distance, this is still a good Brumbies team.
Getting a couple other point from it as well is really important. Really, really important.
Totally. And I guess the other results that kind of happened elsewhere lessens the fact of their issues with like making the top 6. Like they'll definitely be in the top 6, I believe, but pushing for that home final is the big one that will definitely take a knock after this round because the Chiefs handled the Force. I feel for the Force. I will say this. I feel for the Force. I sat there and we talked about this last week. Hurricanes played 90 minutes against the Force in Perth. We then just had to travel to Canberra. They had to travel all the way to Hamilton to play top of the table Chiefs. And I predicted this when it happened. I was like, this Force team, as good as they've been this year, this is a game where I think they run out of steam, and they did, rightfully so. It's a tough one. Like, again, Chiefs are the best team in this comp still, I believe. And to do that after 90 minutes and then travel, it was always going to be hard for the Force. The Reds.
Yeah, huge game.
We're talking about halves now. I think that was probably the best 9-10 performance I've seen from an Australian duo in Super Rugby in a long time.
Well, look, there's a few other things we're going to add to this as well because breaking news as of today, I don't know if you've seen this. I know we posted about the rumours, but it's now been confirmed that Joe Schmidt is staying on through until mid-2026. So he's not finishing up after British and Irish Lions tour this year. He will be going through the Rugby Championship and all those other international games this year. And there'll be a transition period mid-next year as Les Kiss finishes up his contract with the Reds in Super Rugby and will then move into the Wallabies job while Schmidt is still there, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I think that's such a good win for Australian rugby, as well as for both Schmidt and Les Kiss. So I think literally everybody wins from this, except for the teams that have to play Australia. Not saying that we're going to beat everyone, but, we may never lose again. Look, Les Kiss showed today why he's the man that's been selected by Rugby Australia to take over from Joe Schmidt, and he showed what he can do with a quality halves pairing. Tate McDermott, I think, has stamped his way into the starting 9 jersey for the Wallabies. I'd be very surprised if it was anyone else. I'd be very, very surprised. I don't think there's another 9 out there that has solidly put their hand up to be the starting Wallabies 9. Partially because, look, Nick White's had a good season, but just not as good as Tate McDermott. Jake Gordon's missed a lot of time, and we've been having a pretty good season, but nothing spectacular. But Tate McDermott has had a hell of a season. Now we come to the 10 jersey, and we've been debating this almost every week, it seems. We were talking about James O'Connor last week. Now we're on to Tom Liner, and I think, look, either of those, I think that might be the 10 pairing for the Wallabies is James O'Connor and Tom Liner. One, they've played together before in the Red system, although probably not a huge amount of contact given the limited overlap there, but still they've been in that same system together. So they have, James O'Connor's already been a mentor to Liner, and I'm sure he could continue to do that in a Wallaby setup. But 2, Liner showed this game a lot of toughness. Like, you watch the tries he scored, that's just a willingness to take it to the line. And for such a smaller guy, comparatively to other rugby players, the amount of power he was able to use to get through some of those tackles and take the ball over the line against a not bad Blues team. This is a team that won the competition last year, is amazing. But, we've seen how he's also been able to unlock other elements of the Reds attack as well. Look, I also want to shout out, as a forward, I'm always going to shout out the front row in this game. I think Zane Nongor has been having a quietly very, very good season for the Queensland Reds. What I've seen from him when I've watched him play has been very, very good. I am also got big raps for Big Massimo De Lutis, all right? Huge shift from De Lutis, just an immense human being with a name like Massimo as well. You'd expect him to be big, and he is massive, and great work carrying the football, especially, or the rugby ball, I should say. But this is a game where they play without Harry Wilson as well, without their inspirational leader, without the Wallabies captain. Fraser McWright, always good, stepping up to the plate as well. But overall, the Reds forward pack had a great game as well. So yeah, look, Queensland coming into keeping that momentum going into this final series. They're in Fiji this week, never an easy place to play, as we know. Look, the Reds are a team that I have faith in to get the job done when they're away from home. So unlike the Waratahs, when we look at the Australian teams, you sort of got there's a clear demarcation line between the top two and the bottom two, right? The Reds, the Brumbies are always steady, always in a game, never going to give up. The Waratahs and Force, as we see them, the games that they lose, they tend to lose pretty heavily. Things start to collapse. There's just not that solid structure that you have with the other two teams. If they can get a lead early and they could stay in a game, they'll be competitive the whole way. But if they get a little bit behind, that's when you really start to worry about these teams and their fight back. So yeah, look, another feather in the cap of the Queensland Reds, another win in the win column, another good set of points in there. And look, the Blues made a game of it. They made a bit of a comeback in this game. But hey, at the end of the day, the Reds proved too good. I think it's the first time the Reds have beaten the Blues in like 6 years or something as well. Like it was a long drought that they broke.
I want to say this, and look, I'm sympathetic. The Blues won last year, obviously with Plummer playing his best rugby, but you have a 2-time World Player of the Year in Jordie Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
You're going into a game that I consider for you a must-win, and you decide to start him on the bench. Like what the? I'm glad you fucking lost. Like again. They are now 3 and 7 with what have we got left? 3 rounds left? 4 rounds left?
No. We got
5 rounds.
5 rounds. 5.
But that's for them. That'll be only
week.
4 more games.
Yeah, because they have a bye week in week 15. Yeah,
exactly. So they've got 4 more games. So the best they can now finish is 7 and 7, and maybe that'll get you in. Maybe it won't. But I go, for a game of this high importance against a team up on that ladder, to not start Jordie Barrett was just outrageous to me. But Blues, keep doing what you're doing because it helps my chances of getting my Hurricanes in. Elsewhere, Moana Pacifica won the Battle of the Pacific Nations. Drua, what really has happened from last year is Moana Pacifica has taken that Drua role where they're now beating everyone. And I think people underestimated Ardie Savea's movement and his switch across because
I think he's won World Player of the Year, right? I don't think though there's been any bigger boost to his legacy than what Moana Pacific have been doing this year because it shows you his impact on a team. And the fact that Moana Pacifica have gotten 4 wins already is not actually. I need to go back and look at this because this might equal their total win total over their existence in Super Rugby.
They won 4 last year.
They won 4 last year. Did they really win 4 last year? Jeez.
Mm-hmm. They won 1 the year before that. And then 2 the year before that. So, again, we're 5 rounds left. They've got 4 games left. There's a less team, but they're already tied their best season. What I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pitch this question to you, and I'll be interested to hear your response. Does he win Super Rugby Player of the Year? For a team that's middling, maybe doesn't make the playoffs. Like, say they do make the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big argument to give. But
I think if they make the finals, yes. I think if they miss out on the finals, probably not. I think that's a really big thing is to have your team make the finals. And look, I think as well, even though he's missed quite a bit of the season, if the Waratahs can bring it home in the last few weeks, and Joseph Suaalii is a big part of that, I think he's in with a big shot from a team going from last place last year into the finals. You could see an argument for him there. Otherwise, other players you're thinking of, look, Linus put his hand up now in the Reds system for potentially there as well. But yeah, obviously D-Mac always a name. But yeah, look, I think it's very possible. I don't think it's outside the realm of possible. He'd be in the top, 5 or 6 of betting odds.
Yeah. Can the Crusaders fuck off? Okay, I say that with the most politeness I can because I'm fucking sick of it. Like, they go down to their arch rivals, the Highlanders, same island. They're meant to be big rivals. Highlanders, first few rounds showed some fight and have just fallen fucking apart, and the Crusaders ripped them apart. And it was heartbreaking to watch because there's two things. I've lived in Dunedin. I love the Highlanders. It's my second New Zealand team. And I fucking hate the Crusaders. So I sit here and I go, that was the worst result I could have. And I just don't want to see it anymore. I'm sick of it. My issue is, say we win this week, say the Hurricanes beat the Chiefs. All that does is line up the Crusaders to finish first. And I don't fucking want that. I'm fucking sick of them finishing first. I thought we were going to have a page in history, at least a moment in time, where the Crusaders for a few years were going to be fucking shit, and they're not, and I hate it.
Well, thankfully, the Crusaders have a bye this week, and then they play the Chiefs the week after. So it at least gives the Chiefs a shot at writing their own story there and holding on to first position. But yeah, look, the Highlanders, I don't know what's happened, but they've been broken. The first 10 weeks or so of the competition were all close games. A loss by 1 point, win by 8 points, win by 2 points, a loss by 2 points, a loss by 6 points, a loss by 7 points, a loss by 9 points, then a big win against Fiji, and then 2 big losses in a row. So I don't know what's happened to the Highlanders. They were there, they were competing against all the big boys, and then they've come up against the Chiefs and Crusaders and just been run over. And that's probably their season done. They're the same record as the Blues, but with a much worse points differential. They're up against Moana Pacifica this week, which will be a tough battle for them. Then they finish the season 2 games on the road against your Canes and then the Crusaders, and then finish off hosting the Chiefs. So look, they may not win another game.
Home.
Yeah, they may not win another game.
Which again, we spoke about this when we made our predictions. We said the Highlanders, we felt like they were a growing young team. They started off like it was they were going to surprise us all, and we bought into it as well. I think everyone did because of their grit and determination they've shown, and maybe it is just this now experience showing, and they just don't quite have it. Look, Super Rugby in a fascinating spot next week, as you mentioned multiple times, but Blues play the Force. Both of those teams realistically need to win that game because the Blues want to keep their season alive. Blues are done if they lose that game. Force need to get back on track after last week. Drua hosts the Reds. Again, this is more can Drua continue to win at home and surprise teams? Can the Reds build into a potential top 2 team? My Hurricanes against the Chiefs. Massive implications all around. Another game with exactly the same there. Brumbies, Waratahs, massive implications for both of those teams. And then finally, Highlanders, Moana.
Some advice for your Canes. Secret unlocked by the Waratahs. If you hit Damian McKenzie, he can't. If you hit him while he's holding the ball, he can't pass it and set up tries, and he can't keep running for tries as well. So I think that's the key to the game is tackle Damian McKenzie.
I'm going to let you keep talking because what has actually happened is Damian McKenzie's out injured, so he's not even playing.
There you go. So what you're saying is a win for Canes.
Yeah, you did the job for us. I think after that week, he played like one more week and was like, nah, I'm still a bit sore from that Waratahs game. So, yeah, look, I know, again, no D-Mac, no Anton Leonard-Brown. If there's a chance to take down the Chiefs, it's right now. They're still a fucking talented team. I saw their team named and I was like, shit, they're good. Their 4-pack's good. They've got exciting wingers. It's going to be fucking scary. But as I said, when we went to the Force, as we've done against the Brumbies, we can do this. We need to do this. We need to win these games. So, big game there. Same, it's Brumbies week for you, bud. Like, you must be excited. Like, this is an opportunity. First away win, potentially. They're coming off a loss. So, they'll probably be fired up. You'll be fired up coming off your bye. It's fucking on. I love fucking Brumbies Waratahs week.
And look, we beat them earlier this year at home as well, which is the first time we'd gotten a win over the Brumbies in a long time. But I'm just going to look up the Brumbies team list to see if it's been announced for this week as well. See if there's any injuries. See what I can take away from it. All right, here. No, that's the under 20s. Oh, here we go. Team. Okay, so we got
pretty much the same as last week.
Yeah, Slipper Pollard, Alatoa, Nick Frost, Tom Hooper at 5. God, he's a big boy. Valentini, Rory Scott, Taia Tuolima at 8. Lonergan, Lolosio, Toole, Failua, Ikatau, Muirhead, and Tom Wright, and then the bench. Yeah, they made one change because Reimer's on the bench instead of starting this week, and I can't remember that much. Clayton Thorne, actually, I want to mention him from the game they played last week, the Brumbies against your Canes. His first touch of the ball that game was incredible, and he had a really solid showing actually, right up until he threw his final pass out of bounds, basically. Just a misread there from a young player. But man, I think that's a name to watch, is Clayton Thorne, because totally. he had a good showing. Is it 21 this week instead of 23 with Ollie Saps with Declan Meredith? But yeah, I was impressed from what I saw from Clayton Thorne. Yeah.
Can you say that though? Because he went to Waverley College, so you can't say that about him.
Look, I'm more than 10 years out of school now. I got to drop the bias now. No, I did a cadet camp with Waverley once. Yeah, I mean, I could just everything you think about him's true. Yeah, just as degenerate as we all thought they would be. A lot of kids that had been expelled from other schools somehow made their way to Waverley. But if we're looking at the Waratahs, there has been obviously quite a few changes for the Waratahs, given that the game against the Drua was they rested a lot of their Waratahs players. So Big Belly's back, Angus Bell's back, which is great for us as well. Tom Lambert is back on the bench as well, which is really great because I think he's a very underrated player. Mahe Vailanu is back on the bench as well. Again, another underrated player. Tupou's on the bench as well. Jake Gordon, obviously, rugby player. He's back. Back and leading the team, which is great. And Teddy Wilson's on the bench. I think Teddy Wilson's done a fantastic job for the Waratahs since Jake Gordon's been out. Jake Gordon's just announced he's re-signing, but I hope that they're able to keep Teddy Wilson as well because he's been absolutely fantastic for him. Or to be honest, if they can't keep him, I hope that he goes to another Australian Super Rugby franchise and starts for them. Maybe the Western Force. They need some youth at that halfback position. Yeah, I think he's an absolutely fantastic player. So yeah, should be a really exciting game. Obviously still missing Max Jorgensen, Parecki, Charlie Gamble as well. Like some key pieces missing, but a good squad. 2 good squads facing off this week.
Yeah, very important week in Super Rugby for this season. Moving across the ditch, but fully across the ditch, should I say, across the world. URC, Stephen Donald discussed over the weekend that Leinster centre, Jordie Barrett, should not start for the All Blacks in the upcoming test because he's been playing at a lower level for Leinster, and comparing that URC isn't as good as Super Rugby Pacific. And it's an interesting topic. One I tend to disagree with as a whole. I understand what he's saying. Like, I get it. There are lower level teams. I think more lower level teams in the URC. You've got the Italian groups. You've got the Welsh club teams. I don't think, especially with the South Africans added to it, I don't think the level is that much of a drop-off to Super Rugby. If anything, those top teams, Leinster, your Sharks, your Bulls, your Stormers, I think Lions, all of those top South African teams are just as good as they were in Super Rugby. So I go, yeah, maybe there are a bunch of teams that you can say that to, but to me, I love the idea of comparing these comps, but I don't think it's a lot of apples and oranges to me. I think Super Rugby Pacific is just such a different product. And I say product, we understand it's rugby, but the difference of we are stuck with, this is all we can have realistically that makes sense in the world right now. The URC has expanded, they've got multiple provinces and multiple countries and stuff, and they've done what's best for them. Yes, that will dilute the competition, as we saw in Super Rugby when we try to grow too much. It dilutes the competition, doesn't make it as strong. You'll see 70-point blowouts. But I don't think he's quite correct in saying that. And I also don't think I wouldn't be starting Jordie Barrett as soon as he came back to the All Blacks.
There's also, just the intangibles as well of just knowing what it is to be an All Black, knowing how to play in those colours, knowing how to play in that system. as well. And I mean, we saw Jordie Barrett play last year for the All Blacks and still be magic. So, yeah, I would be, I would probably tend to agree with you as well. But I mean, look, one of the beautiful things about being an All Black selector is that there is no shortage of good quality players to pick from.
Yeah, and saying that the under-20s rugby championship kicks off in a couple of days, and I know we're playing you in South Africa. It's hosted in South Africa this year, so that'll be exciting to see the youth coming through. And it's started on this discussion that I kind of wanted to talk about, because I know there's also been a lot of news about French clubs poaching especially talented Australian rugby players. Now, I've forgotten the name. I should pull it up, but one young Australian rugby player who's also hotly contested for the NRL, came through, I think, the Panthers junior teams, and then went on to play rugby at school, is probably going to sign with French rugby, which, in the whole, great that he's staying in rugby. There could be an opportunity, the Wallabies get him back, all of these things, that we're not losing him to NRL, but the French obviously have this ability with the money that they have and generate to poach players. And I know Rugby Australia's come out and are going to go talk to World Rugby and say, how do we limit this and stop this? I don't know if there's a good way of doing it. My thing is, if you limit that and you stop the French rugby getting them, does just he go to NRL if there's more opportunities there? But it's also started because Japan has just proposed an anti-diverse blood eligibility law. So the new blood law proposed from 2026 means that at least 8 players on the field must have Japanese blood. So that's completely different to what is at the moment, which is a change from foreign-born Category A players. So players, just because they're representing Japan, doesn't mean they have Japanese blood. So some of those players who have just been there for a long time won't count towards this. And why they're doing it is they obviously want the talent growth from within Japan and not just continuously banking on foreign players coming across, which again happens. You see a lot of it, which is, I think, is a great thing for Japanese rugby. Like, that is what you want. This is what you want you want the ability to be able to select players and get players from all over the world playing in a tough league like the Japan League is, but you also want to grow that game. And I think this is something, again, that French rugby and World Rugby may look to implement for them, just to allow an opportunity for the Wallabies to sign some of these young talents to there. But I guess my thing is that you're probably more affected by this, and I say you. I know New Zealand rugby just lost out. Hurricanes lost out on a player as well to French rugby. So it's not going to happen for us, but the black jersey aura is still a thing in New Zealand rugby, where everyone wants to wear a black jersey. To do that, you have to be playing in New Zealand. Australia, the green and gold jersey probably doesn't hold as much weight at the moment. Not like it can't get back there. So I guess, what are your thoughts on these overseas-based clubs, this overseas laws, all of this that's going on?
Well, look, Australia also has, unlike New Zealand, they've got also the pressure of, as you said, NRL clubs, even AFL in some cases. Like, Australian Union youth talent is like some of the most poached in the world of any league. Nowhere else in the world is it really like taking away from the code as much as it is for Australian rugby. You look at other sports overseas, in the football countries, yeah, they might go play for overseas clubs, but they're still in football, like it is football. And, it's not as if English youth union players are being poached by the league system anywhere near the scale that they are for Australia. When you look at Australian Rugby Union, they have not only the opportunity to be poached by local NRL clubs, which we see a lot, but there's also then poaching now from these overseas teams. Like, this kid that their French rugby are taking is like 16, 17, like hasn't even played games of Super Rugby. Like, how is Rugby Australia supposed to make that substantial investment on saying this guy might be a future Wallaby? Because if we look at it as well, the French competition is also, there's not as much at stake as there is for him to stay in Australia. And what I mean by that, before anyone gets any confusing ideas, is that they're paying this kid to be a good club level player, right? If Rugby Australia want to pay him, and then want to pay him the same bucks that the French are paying him, that would mean that they think that this guy is going to be a future star Wallaby. And how would they know that? Like, he's so young, it's impossible to tell at that age. But the French teams, because they're cashed up, they can take this gamble on these players, even if they just end up being just good club level players. So it's a losing proposition for Rugby Australia there. And then as well, there's NRL coming through. NRL's expanding. They're getting bigger salary caps coming through. They've got 2 new teams that they need to fill jerseys for, with the Fijian team and the newly announced Perth team. Like, the NRL is going to be splashing cash there, and they're going to be playing unfairly as well. They're going to be doing things like salary cap exemptions, anything they can to undermine rugby and get these players over. So Rugby Australia is in a really tough spot. It's in a really, really tough spot to retain talent, and it's going to take all of their skill and expertise to keep them. Luckily, though, we're seeing that they're hoping to start make money to erase debt and to get that investment back in there. So, fingers crossed that they can make it happen. But yeah, it's Rugby Australia. It's a tough gig. It's probably the hardest sport to run in the world because of all of the hostile outside factors that come into play. Like, when people talk about Rugby Australia and Super Rugby, I don't think they understand all of the difficulties and challenges it faces.
Yeah, totally. And as you mentioned, we, like, in New Zealand, we just don't face those challenges as much. Like, hey, cool, like, you want to go and play for French rugby, we would love to keep you, but as you said, there's not a lot else coming. Like, yeah, you can go and play for the Warriors, you can do all these. We are going to lose talent. Again, Nelson Asafa-Solomona is one I always talk about because I played rugby with him growing up. From 13, he was signed to the Storm. He was always going to the Storm. Wellington Rugby knew, like, we still kept training, he still played for our rep teams. The Hurricanes, I think, made a last-ditch effort. We all knew he was going. And it's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, cool. Does it matter? Do we think Nelson Asafa-Solomona would have been in a back jersey for, yeah, probably, but is he as good as everyone else? You start to really compare, and you're like, that's the talent we have coming through. So it is.
It probably would have meant the Wallabies might have won a Bledisloe by now, because I'm sure he would have been red carded if he's been in the All Blacks jersey.
Yeah, at some point there, definitely. So look, again, it's one of those things that it's the ongoing conversations. I'm not opposed to anyone bringing up those conversations, especially from an Australian representative standpoint. Like, World Rugby, it's not an issue, but it's something that we do. We want to keep players here. We want to keep our product growing. We understand what French rugby's doing. We understand French rugby is the biggest league in the world. We understand it's got the most money. We understand it is polarizing at the moment, and it's probably going to keep being polarizing. But how do we allow them to do that without stealing our talent, without nabbing on to some of our players is a key. I think we do need to go, how do we stop that? Or how do we limit it? Like, hey, cool, this is how we can limit it. I don't know. I don't even know where to start, but hopeful that some smarter players or smarter people in World Rugby, World Rugby and smarts don't really go together too much, but I'm hoping that they can come up with a solution for us. Because that would be, again, more talent in Super Rugby coming up, more talent in these competitions, make a better product. Look, 5 weeks to go. We're 2/3 of the way through Super Rugby season. It's going to be hotly contested throughout. We will be back again next week after my Hurricanes defeat the Chiefs and your Waratahs finally get an away win over the Brumbies. For now, thank you for joining us. I've been Luke. That has been Husey. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.